And greetings to Professor Arnab Bhattacharya ji. Thank you so much, sir, for being part of Indic Academy's conversations. And congratulations on the release of your book today at Udupi, such a beautiful land to have a book launch at. So I was just listening before you came to a talk on the Saundarya Lahari. And there they mention, the speaker mentions that the goddess of wisdom and learning, Saraswati itself has five forms and five colors representing her. So our goddess of learning itself is so complex. So, but what has happened today is we have simplified everything from food to language to learning. So, in this scenario of a culture that is so I wouldn't say complex, but so has so many elements to it. Where does Sanskritam as a language fit in today? And you talk about the unity of all languages. So could you relate these two aspects?
Namaste, Namo Namaha. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. So, as you are right, so Sanskrit as a language has got many facets to it. So it has a Sahitya, which is, we all know about Kalidas, etc. Then it has the Vyakaran part. And people don't realize that this Ashtadhyayi, Panini's Ashtadhyayi is written in a technical language, which is, sounds like Sanskrit, but if you do not know the jargon there, you will not be able to understand. Just like our programming languages, right?
Sure.
And then Sanskrit embodies all that can go inside it. So each word, each letter, in fact, there is an Ekakshar Kosha. So each letter of Sanskrit has a meaning. So when you construct a word, that has got this meaning. So Saraswati, the itself word has a meaning. Then we call Bharati, Bagmi. All of this has got meaning. So, and each word highlights the nuance of a word from the different aspect. So that way, Sanskrit is a very powerful language. I mean, of course, you can just use it as a language to communicate, but as a technical language, as a language to express different ideas of the same being. At least I do not know of any other language that can be even close to Sanskrit. And on the book, which is about unity of Indian languages, so we call it Samanvay. I mean, the name itself should be understandable. What does that mean? And Indian languages are very much similar to each other than what seems to be on the surface. And we have this belief that there is a North Indian language family and a South Indian language family, and they are different. That is not true, actually. That is, it has been shown multiple times using computational linguistics method, using historical linguistics method, etc., that they are actually much closer to each other. Some very fundamental things, for example, this subject, object, verb, that is common across Indian languages. In Hindi, you say, "Main chawal khata hu," in Bangla, "Ami bhat khai," in Tamil, "Na nari chi se puti kiren," and Sanskrit also, "Aham anyam khadami." So this, I mean, so then there are many such things which brings out the unity of it. So what we have tried to do in this book is, from the computational linguistics point of view, we have taken a thorough look at 6 languages. Sanskrit, of course, is there. Then your Kannada, Bangla, Marathi, Malayalam, and Hindi. And then we found out that the way you represent a language, say using morphology, like, so when I take the word Samanvay, what is it composed of? Sam and Anvay. And then you can break down Anvay, all of this. When you say Gayati, so there's a Ga Dhatu, and then there's a, and if you look at it this way, the morphology, and then the dependency tag. So if you connect words in a sentence, how does a sentence get its meaning? That is actually much more uniform than that we realize. So that is what we try to bring into this book. So that way it's
I read a story in a newspaper which said that in a school in Karnataka, when they spoke Sanskritam, the children who had no knowledge of Sanskritam, they actually understood vaguely the meaning.
I would say not vaguely. So I think, in fact, this is what I say everybody. All Indians know Sanskrit. The problem is they do not know that they know Sanskrit.
Correct. That was actually there in a demographic survey.
Yes.
Where we have to answer language is known. None of us put Sanskritam.
No, because
but we know to read. We know to chant.
We know to chant,
We know
and
the
if you
vocabulary.
listen, we know the vocabulary because vocabulary is 80 to 90% common
Correct.
across all languages. You can understand. Mostly you can understand. So it's just that Sanskrit is what to call it. I mean, it's in our culture, in our genes. So you just have to get over that barrier that I know Sanskrit, and that's all. I mean,
See, the complicated factor is the adults because we are so attached to foreign languages, especially to English. So can we who largely think in English, can we use such a precise language like Sanskritam, which has a word for even very abstract ideas? So when you talk about non-Indian languages, you have spoken about Indian language. So when you talk about a non-Indian language, and when a lot of people are now thinking and using non-Indian languages, what is lost, and how do we bridge that gap?
so using English is a problem because it loses many of the meanings and the nuances. Using Sanskrit should be the base. In fact, some people will say, "Oh, Sanskrit is an old language. How do you present new ideas?" But Sanskrit has a very nice ability to generate. So you take a concept. Basically, every word has a concept. Say you take computer. Computer was definitely not there during Panini's time. At least it's not attested, right? But you can make a word out of it, Sanganakam, and you can understand it immediately. You can make a word engineering, Abhijantriki. So it is all of us, all of Indians can understand what it means. That is number one. Number two is that so when India got this political independence in 1947, there was this debate in Constituent Assembly, right? That what should be the case. And English was adopted as a temporary measure. People forget it, but nothing in this country remains temporary. So, and at that time, there were more Sanskrit knowing people in the country than English knowing people. So Sanskrit should have been the common vehicle. We can still do it. It just depends on our will. So if all of us wants to use it, there is no better choice than Sanskrit, and we can express each other, understand each other much better. And all of this technical, I mean, it takes not much of a time to coin the technical terms and start using. And I'll just take one more example. When Israel was formed, Hebrew was an extinct language. They actually employed scholars to revive that language. Now they have made it their state language. Now they're even writing computer code in Hebrew. So you see, if there is a will, you can go, you can even survive, you can even revive an extinct language. And Sanskrit is very much living. It's all of us are living it. So there is just no technical barrier to using Sanskrit. Yes.
I was also noticing that a lot of stories are there about because of the burning down of Nalanda University, a lot of our knowledge disappeared, but we still have the key. So with this key, is it possible? I mean, AI is possible of so much now. Is it possible to recreate some of the things that we have lost through, some kind of computer code? Like if you say so many texts of this particular Veda is lost, is it possible in terms of machine generation?
It's a very, very good question. And in fact, what you made is a very important point. Although we have lost a lot of manuscripts, lot of knowledge, etc., we still have the key. We still have this ability to generate knowledge. In fact, it is being said in Sanskrit that what is more important is the key, and it is all inside us. If the kshetra is right, if there is enough need for it, it will again spring back. So all we need is to provide that, and all that is lost can be revived. All that is lost can be generated. Of course, if you now tell me there is a particular shakha of say Shamved that is lost, can we revive it? Maybe in that technical sense, no. But the point is not that particular shakha. The point is that there are these variations, there are these local adaptations, there are these local cultures. So we can definitely do that.
And create new knowledge.
And create new knowledge. Yeah. Exactly. Create new knowledge.
Do we have that ability, or did only our rishis have access to that? But now with our new, kind of modernity of thinking,
it can only help. It can only help. So we need to know how to use it to help. So that's what. So, for example, in this, I'm coming back to the book. We are doing it computational linguistics, and so computation is only a tool to get to linguistics. The main point is language unity. Computation is just a tool. So therefore, we should be able to use these tools. Yes.
The government is talking about Viksit Bharat, and it has a plan for the next several years, within 20, 30 years, to have India that is based on these traditional knowledge systems and values. So, if you take our languages, what role can they play in development, psychologically, ethically, as well as in terms of economics and development?
So this so the languages play a major role because languages is something it's very inherent. We call this mother language, mother tongue, right? And it's not just a term. The connection of a child with her or his mother is the most profound and it's the most fundamental. Similarly, the connection with the mother tongue, because that's the language that the mother speaks, is the first thing that the child actually listens. Is the first thing. I mean, I would tend to believe that the child thinks in that mother tongue, and then when you have to communicate, I have to internally translate and do all of this. So communicating in that language should make it easier to study Indian knowledge systems. And on this Indian knowledge systems is not just about reviving the old practices or knowing that or feeling proud or cataloging. All that is true. That is all needed. But it offers a fundamentally different way of looking at life, looking at our culture, looking at us. And that the vehicle for that, the language is Sanskrit, as I said. So there are different meanings for this. For example, you take the very simple word matri or pitri. You can just translate it as mother and father and leave it that. Or you can go inside the etymology of it. Why ma? Why this pita, this palan? The pita is one who palan karta hai. So basically that holds the family together. Sunu, the word sunu is for son. And so these have got all meanings to it. These have got all very deep meanings. So if we start using these words, it's easier to use Indian knowledge system. It's easier to revive us. It's easier to be more productive, if you want to call it that way.
Yeah. And nothing in India, no knowledge system is cut off from divinity. And I guess Sanskritam is they say cradle of Tantra, cradle of everything. So Sanskrit seems to be the cradle of also our divinity.
Absolutely.
In how is it embedded into the language? Would you be able to-
So, the divinity is in the words. So, some of these words.
Like Matrika, sorry, we have the
Yes.
51
Ha.
letters,
So,
which are
so
Matrikas.
correct.
Yeah.
So for us, language, you see this, you take this Vakyapadyam. The whole idea of language is to attain the final goal, which is moksha. So, language is just a vehicle. So, the ultimate aim is always to align yourself with the divinity that is within us, so Sanskrit is just a very natural choice for that. And Swami Vivekananda said, education is the manifestation of the perfection already in man. So you can kind of instead of perfection you can put divinity, and instead of education you can put Sanskrit. So Sanskrit is just the manifestation of this divinity.
And what about the sound itself? When we
Sabda
when we
Brahma.
yeah when we
Sabda
are
Brahma
talking
is
about mantras and we're talking about nadam,
Ah.
and you talk about computational linguistics. So what aspects? How do you quantify or qualify sound in your studies?
Correct. So computational linguistics has two major parts, and the more major part is the text. Now, text, according to me, is not language because speech is the language, and you have by writing it down, you have lost a lot of things. It's just a very, it's an approximation of the thing. And computational linguistics should also therefore has this speech processing. And because Shabda Brahma, we have the concept of Shabda Brahma, and Shabda is again the most fundamental sense that is being developed in a child. The child learns to listen to Shabda, and Shabda is what helps us gain cognition, to gain understanding. Therefore, whatever we want to do in calling it language studies or Indian knowledge system studies, speech Shabda should be primary. It is not. I mean it's not the major part of studying so far. Even our book, we have to, because it's a reader. So the paradigm right now is that everything is written and everything is read. It's not there. So, but we should be doing more of this speech and Shabda.
What about your other research interests? Could you tell us?
So, essentially, do a lot of research in Indian knowledge systems, Sanskrit processing, language processing. We have another presentation here on Ayurveda. So there is this Bhava Prakash, which is one of the Lahutrayas of Ayurveda, and there is a Nigantu portion of it, dictionary portion of it. So what we have made a computational tool for people to search, browse, access, etc. That's a couple of things. Then this concept of the language component, that can you directly translate between Indian languages, and that should be easier instead of going through English, which loses a lot of things. Couple of there, and then one of the things is that now the whole world is talking about ChatGPT and many other things. And if you look at the state of ChatGPT or any such tool for Indian languages, it has become much better, but it's nowhere near English. The reason are twofold. One is the number of people working on it, and the other is the number of corpus, the text that is made available. Now, ironically, Sanskrit has got more text corpus than all of Greek, Latin, all of this combined, 10 times more than that. So it's just a matter of putting things together into the thing, and then also using. Now, the other important part is that there are many of this language processing parts, which is very Western language, English language specific, tokenization, etc. The whole paradigm is of that. So therefore, we are now force fitting them into Indian languages. So one of my fundamental researches that I want to do with and others doing is that can we change even those fundamentals of processing? So we can always take a Sanskrit corpus, fit it, and make a better Sanskrit ChatGPT. That is, of course, needed to be done, and I'll be very happy to be part of any such effort. But more importantly, can you question the fundamental? For example, what is a word? I mean, see, in English, words are just white space separated things. In Hindi, that is the view that modern linguistics takes. Like when you say, Ram ne Ravan ko mara, and if you ask any Hindi speaker, any Hindi linguist even, they will say there are 5 words. But actually there are 3 concepts. Ram ne Ravan ko mara. Correct? And in Sanskrit, this is actually just 3 words. Ramaha Ravanam Hanti. So then this, if you just use white space separation as in English, then the whole processing is starting from a very wrong base. So can you correct the base before you move on? So these are some of the other.
So last year, me and 2 people, one from Stanford Research Institute and one from Fujitsu, we did a paper on AI and art and ethics. So their first thing they said was, Indian ethics and Indian knowledge systems are based on first principles. So we've got that, so everything can be derived from that.
Absolutely.
Whereas theirs, like you said, is like add-on.
Ad hoc and add-on. Yes, you add on. You just
it'll never cover all of knowledge.
It's correct.
So what you're saying is we go back to a system where we have these first principles. And will cover all languages, even new language that keeps developing.
Yes. That's true. And for us, knowledge is not segmented. See, the other problem in modern pedagogy, university system is that there's a department, and then there's another department, and then there's a disunity, right? So ecology will say, oh, you should not cut so much trees. Economics will say, no, you cut so much trees because growth is in it. So there is a disharmony. But for us, knowledge is the first principles. You see, I mean, you identify yourself with nature, with divinity, and then you build upon different things on that. Yeah.
Just as a last question,
sure.
In terms of a modern language, we still, all of us say that Sanskritam is a living language. What qualities of this language qualify as a modern language?
So, I mean, you can do whatever you want to do in Sanskrit. So, if that is the definition of a modern language, you can communicate. I mean, now this conference is going on. People are actually giving speeches in Sanskrit. People are listening to it. People are responding, question answering, all of this. There are books written in Sanskrit. So, you can do whatever you want to do in Sanskrit. That way, it is a modern language. And as I said, more importantly, the words that get added to Sanskrit has a meaning. It's not a direct adaptation. See, other Indian languages per se have this problem. They just adapt words as is because, you see, for example, email, if you just take. So we all use email in Bangla, in Hindi, Kannada, we all use email. You can do that in Sanskrit if you want to treat it like that. Or you can understand that this is what does it mean and then use an appropriate word. So in fact, I would say Sanskrit is more living than anybody else. It's a healthy, everybody else is probably living.
Yeah.
Sanskrit is a healthy language.
Yes.
Not just living.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Such a lovely conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Namaste. Namaste.